What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Another episode of Seahawks Now, your home for all things daily Seattle Seahawks news, rumors, and, of course, updates. Guys, there is a lot going on right now in the Seahawks. OTAs have begun. It is now June. Things are starting to ramp up, but there is still one player that I think the Seahawks should trade for. I think it would be wise to add Trey Hendrickson to the team. Of course, we're going to talk about him today. The rumors flying around about his current status. Is he available? Is he not? Let's get into it. Plus, some Seahawks players are talking about their affinity for the new look offense. Things are looking good right now in Seattle. Plus, we analyze the Seahawks roster turnover compared to the rest of the NFL. All right, guys, let's get into it. But first, if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps out the channel. Alrighty, guys, Trey Hendrickson. This is the guy that I have been asking for quite some time, honestly, in Seattle. In my opinion, Trey Hendrickson would be the best player to add to the Seahawks, period. Look, Trey Hendrickson, yes, he's expensive. I'll admit it. You know, he's a very expensive player, but he's also a game changer. I mean, he is a game changer. In the past 2 years, nobody has more sacks than Trey Hendrickson does. 4 of his last 5 years, he's essentially been elite. And the 1 year that he didn't put up elite stats, he was injured. So, yeah, there's a real argument to say Trey Hendrickson, probably one of the maybe 5 or 6 best edge rushers in the league. He's in the same category as guys like Myles Garrett, guys like Chris Jones, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, Micah Parsons, Trey Hendrickson. That's probably, those are the 7 big-time edge rushers in the NFL. I would say there's about 7 of them. And I think a lot of people forget that Trey Hendrickson is part of that group because, yeah, he's not as flashy. He's not going to go out and do a bunch of podcasts like Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. He's not winning a ton of awards like TJ Watt wins a lot of awards, Nick Bosa. But he's just consistent, right? Trey Hendrickson is just consistent, a little bit flies under the radar. I think it also, it doesn't help his case that he plays for Cincinnati, which is maybe a smaller market team, a team that doesn't have as big of a fan base, but it's also a team that has been dominated by their offensive star. So when you think Bengals, you think Jamar Chase, you think T. Higgins, you think Joe Burrow. A lot of people forget, if not for Trey Hendrickson, I don't know if this team is making the playoffs any of these seasons. I mean, even with Joe Burrow, I don't know if without Hendrickson, are the Bengals making the Super Bowl? I mean, look, Trey Hendrickson has been insane. 2020 with the Saints, 13.5 sacks. 2021 with the Bengals, 14 sacks. 2022, 8 sacks. And then 2023, 17.5 sacks. And last year, another 17.5 sacks. Despite that, last year was the first year that he received Defensive Player of the Year votes, but he was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He also defended 6 passes. He forced 2 fumbles. He ended up with 19 tackles for a loss, which is a career high, and 36 quarterback hits, which is a career high. I mean, he was 30 last year, and he had the best season of his career, and I think he really flew under the radar because nobody was talking about the Bengals, and if they were talking about the Bengals, they were talking about Burrow and Chase. They weren't talking about Trey Hendrickson. So I forgive you if you don't realize how good of a player he is. It's okay, right? I forgive you. Here's what I'm going to say, though. He's absolutely a stud. And he is a game changer. I mean, if he comes to Seattle, he's going to change the way this defense functions for the better, right? There's no other way to slice it. Trey Hendrickson makes your team better. He makes your defense better, and he makes it a championship-level defense. That's what people are talking about. That's what everyone is saying. I understand he's expensive. I get it. You don't want to pay $40 million for a guy who, he only has 1 season left in his contract. Then you probably have to extend him. If you really care about winning a Super Bowl, if you really care about being a championship team, you make that move, right? The nice thing is, yes, he's expensive financially. He's not actually that expensive to trade for, right? Because, again, he only has 1 season left, and right now he's holding out. So I think if you offered the Bengals a second-round pick, I think they'd jump at it. I think maybe even a third-round pick at this point would get the job done. Again, now you'd have to pay him. You'd have to offer Trey Hendrickson. You'd probably have to give him a 4-year extension. You'd have to give him close to $40 million a season. That's a lot of money. I get it. That's a lot of money. But it's Trey Hendrickson. And, he's on the other side of 30 now. He's going to be 31. But he's also coming off the best year in his career. So how can you say that the age, I mean, I don't think the age can really play a factor here when he's coming off the best year of his career. I think it seems pretty disingenuous, actually, to say that. So I would make that trade in a heartbeat as a Seahawks fan. I know I'm not the GM. I'm not the guy who manages the books. Maybe they are just out of money. But if I was them, I'd at least be interested because he brings their defense from good to great to elite in one. And all of a sudden, you no longer have to rely on Boye Mafe for your sacks because you've got him in Trey Hendrickson. All right, let's continue. Let's move on. The Seahawks offensive stars talking about their new look offense and giving some interesting insights into what this team could look like next year. Specifically, they were talking to Jackson Smith-Njigba and Charles Cross. They say they love the new attitude for the Seahawks offense. This is according to a story on Seahawks on Sports Illustrated by Randy Gurzy. He writes, the Seahawks offense will look different in 2025. Obviously, we know this. Clint Kubiak is in. Ryan Grubb is out. Sam Darnold is in at quarterback. Geno Smith is out. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are out. Cooper Kupp is in. It's going to be a different offense. They've also brought in Gray Zabel on the offensive line. They brought in, definitely some help at receiver with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Here's what wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba has to say. He says he just loves the attitude about it. He thinks that things are looking up. And I love to hear that about things because I think a lot of times in the NFL, change, it can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. And it all depends on how you look at it and how you approach it. A lot of people are probably thinking, why did we get rid of DK? Why did we get rid of Geno Smith, right? Those were good players, and now they're gone, and now we have to, start from scratch to replace them. And I think there's a lot of other people who are saying, yeah, it's good that we got rid of these guys. We needed to improve, and we did. We upgraded. And I think that is going to be probably the signature debate of the season among fans, especially if things go wrong, is did we make the right calls this offseason? The nice thing to hear is that the players, at least right now, they seem to think that we did make the right calls. Here's what Charles Cross has to say. He says he's happy with what he's seen as an offensive tackle. He says their offense can control the game and run the ball and, quote, give us a chance to run the ball, let our backs do their thing, and set things up for the receivers. I feel like this type of offense is dynamic. A lot of big plays from the run and pass game. Again, very good to hear. Now, does that mean a whole lot? Maybe not. I mean, look, the players, they want to put a positive spin on things. It's off season, it's OTAs. So I'm sure that there's an element of as well that, yeah, these guys are trying to put a positive spin on things. They're trying to make the team look as good as they can make it look. It's good to see that they're united in that. But again, it's good to hear. They seem to all think, everything we've heard about this offense is that it's going to be dynamic. It's going to be better than last year. It's going to be a lot different, I think, but I think it's going to be really cool. And speaking of the new roster, there's a new article out today analyzing the roster turnover in the NFL. This is according to SB Nation, fieldgoals.com, an article by Mookie Alexander. He analyzed where the Seahawks ranked in the 2025 roster turnover rate. I thought it was an interesting article, so I want to touch on it. This is according to a website called overthecap.com. They actually go through every single team and rank which team had the highest roster turnover rate. The Seattle Seahawks ranking 18th in overall roster turnover at 70.3%. That is wild. Yeah, so think about that. Out of the Seahawks roster, only 30% of the guys are the same from last year. That's crazy. On defense, they end up 19th, 71%. On offense, they are 21st at 66.7%. Perhaps the defensive stat may be surprised given the headlines attached, but here are some defensive players who are no longer on the roster. No longer do the Seahawks have Draymond Jones, Roy Robertson-Harris, Trey Brown, Artie Burns, Rayshawn Jenkins, Trevis Gibson, Kayvon Wallace, and Cameron Young. Okay, so now we adjust the parameters because a lot of those guys didn't really play. So when limiting the scope to players who actually took 30% of the team's snaps or more, then the Seahawks are actually 10th in roster turnover on defense. They keep 81% of their guys. So yeah, when you think about the actual starters, they actually kept a lot of their starters. They kept about 80% of their starters on defense, and they kept 65% of their starters on offense. Of course, the offense, the ranking, they are 26th. So they had a lot of turnover on offense, but not as much on defense when you consider the actual starters. Only Jones, Robertson-Harris, Brown, and Jenkins meet the 30% standard for the defense. So they ended up with 4 guys on defense who played over 30% of our snaps last year who are no longer with the team. On offense, you lose DK, Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, and then you also ended up losing George Fant, Laken Tomlinson, who we chose to not re-sign, and Stone Forsythe, who we chose to not re-sign. The latter two I'm very happy about. Those guys did not do very well on the offensive line at all. So yeah, I think it made sense that the offense goes through a little more turnover than the defense, but it is interesting, right? The offense, 26th in turnover. So it's definitely, when I say a new look offense, it is a new look offense. 25 out of the 32 teams have more of the same players than us. We're among the 7 teams that did the most changes to our offense, especially when you look at the starting group. On defense, we are among the 10 teams that kept the most players on defense. But we still added to the defense, which is what I'm excited about. We still added Nick Emenwari. We still ended up adding DeMarcus Lawrence as well to that group. So I think it's going to be a good defense, and hopefully the new look offense will be better than the older offense. With that all being said, guys, that's going to wrap things up for today. As always, if you like what you see, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel down below if you never want to miss another breaking news alert. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and until then, as always, go Seahawks.